Hello chess fans, today's video I'm going to analyze an over-the-board game I played against an around a 2000 rated opponent. So the last time I played this opponent, they decided to go for e4, I went for e5, and we sort of got a boring draw where we both played very accurately, so I didn't want to go for the same thing again. So I decided to go for d6, just sort of mixing things up because I wanted to play for a win. d4, g6, and my opponent played c4, which surprised me because it's sort of a d4 opening, but okay, there's still some intuitive parts about e4 here. So I went for bishop g7, keeping it flexible, knight c3, and here I went for this trendy move c5. And the idea is simply that I want to put all my pawns on dark squares and actually trade my dark squared bishop. Now here, white has a few options, either knight f3 or knight e2, and then, okay, you could go c takes and transpose into a Maroczy bind, or you could go for one of the options in the arrows. And after knight e2, again, you can go for one of the options in the arrows. At this point, if you go for knight f3, this just transposes to the King's Indian, and then this is the Samish variation of the King's Indian. So if you do play the King's Indian, this is another way you can play. But okay, my opponent played by far the most popular move, which is d5. And now I played what is sort of becoming very trendy. So here you have pretty much one of two options. You can either play like a6, knight f6, e6. All these moves are pretty much the same because they all transpose to the Benoni. Or you can play the move I played, which is bishop takes c3, which is sort of the way to keep this in the modern. And now we double their pawns, and then we put all our pawns on dark squares. So this is a familiar strategy to the Nimzo. If you know the Nimzo, often you go e6, double their pawns here, and then put all your pawns on dark squares like this. But here we've sort of gained a tempo because we've not played e6, but then again we've created this weakness with g6, so it's sort of give and take. This is why this is not better than the Nimzo at all. Apparently this g6 move, when you get rid of the dark squared bishop, is more weakening. But at least this setup does make sense. So here, my opponent decided to play this move a4. Now a4 is, I think, the top engine line, but it's sort of not a human move, and that's what I think that probably it shouldn't be played, because the reason that it doesn't really make sense intuitively. Like, I guess your idea is to go a5, but I was never playing b6. Like, I would never do that because, okay, that just creates too many light squared weaknesses, and yeah, a4 is just a confusing move. Maybe my opponent just checked the engine line. Then here I played queen e7, and then here after the game my opponent told me like queen e7 was not a move they checked because it's not an engine line, but okay, apparently it was the top engine move according to my phone, at least. On this computer it's not. Apparently I'm supposed to go queen h4. Okay, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to play queen h4, so queen e7 makes sense. The idea is that in some positions he can maybe go f4 and then, I don't know, open the center or whatever. Here in this position, I guess I have this forcing g3 and then queen e7. This is why this is not so good. But okay, I honestly didn't really know the theory here. So after queen e7, I thought I would preventing f4 because now I can take, if he takes with the bishop, then I take with the queen. So here he went for g4, and at this point, like, I'm completely out of book. Like, I still know that, for example, if they go for a move like bishop d3, I can go f5 here and e4, I thought. Okay, maybe not. Maybe I'm just supposed to take here, and after queen f5, go queen f7. Okay, maybe it's not so simple. Or, yeah, here another very common idea is this move king d8. And the idea is simply that the king is safest on c7 probably. And it defends b7, allows the knight to develop and this to develop. And the king on e8 can sometimes be vulnerable to the open center. So yeah, if he went bishop d3, that's the sort of last move. I think I've had very similar positions to that after bishop d3. But he went g4, which is a move I've never seen. And in fact, it's a very difficult move to respond to as black. So here apparently I should probably just do nothing. I should probably just go like king d8. Let's say they go for like, I don't know, here, I don't know, they go like f3. They can't go f3. They go like bishop d3 or something. And then f5 becomes even more powerful because now if they ever take here, I have e4. So yeah, I guess if I did that, then I would have probably been better because apparently the only move here is h4. In which case after here, what do they do? Okay, now the only move is h5. So, okay, if my opponent did this, then okay, I guess they have an advantage out of the opening. Like, congrats, I guess. But I think there's absolutely no way my opponent went h4, h5 there. So, yeah, I guess f5, the move I played in the game, was not so wise. And the reason why f5 just completely justifies g4, if you're wondering why he played like a4 and g4, this looks completely unhuman, is because he wanted to stop f5, and a4, the idea is that he wants to just put a pawn on a5 and then claim that the bishop can't move because the pawn on b7 is a weakness. Okay, so instead of that, he went queen h5. Now, queen h5 I thought was already the first bad move. Engine really likes it. Now here, what I was really expecting was just takes, and like knight e2 to go knight g3, and the idea is that this e4 square is weak. And okay, I guess this is not as good as I thought for white. Yeah, this is not. So I guess my opponent's move is accurate. And after queen f7, takes, bishop h3. Here the position apparently is not so good for black. So I played the most natural move, knight f97, and here I highly recommend you pause the video and take a few seconds to see if you can find white's best move here. There's a very, very, very difficult move here. Not very difficult. I actually saw it in the game and I was most afraid of it. But I think that it's very, very intuitive for a white player to play. And I think my opponent actually didn't find it and I quickly got an advantage. But if you play this move in this position, like the position is like plus 0.7, it's not looking so pleasant for black. So the best move is... it's f4. And the idea is you just want to open up the two bishops. Now, for example, I think what my opponent might have been afraid of is takes. Bishop takes c8. For example, like knight takes c8 and then takes. And then here, okay, it looks like white is down a pawn and the knight has a nice square on d6. Now, what's important to note about this is that taking here is not forced at all. And so after takes, for example, you can go bishop g2 and immediately recover your pawn. If I go like bishop f5, you can go knight e2. Knight g3 and your pawn's being recovered. You have this connected passed pawn here. You have the two bishops. The position's open. My king is weak. And here I'm actually close to losing. So what I should do after bishop g2 is go for like rook g8, bishop takes e4, and now bishop f5. Try to get this important tempo now. Now this b7 pawn is not hanging. And then, for example, after like, okay, apparently here the best move is bishop e1, so that if I take, you have here. And then after knight d7, the position is plus 0.7. Again, still for white because they have the two bishops. So this is, again, really, really complicated. But instead of that, after knight e7, my opponent went for the move that I was really hoping they'd play, which was knight e3, knight f3. And now the whole idea is to go knight g5. If they get knight g5, okay, maybe they're actually better. But after h6, I think the engine says this position is equal, but I actually have no idea why this position is equal. Like, clearly, I think white is the one that is starved for plans here. Because what do? Like, yeah, you have a pawn on a5, but this pawn can never be targeted. Yeah, maybe this pawn, you have an outpost on e4, but I don't have to give you that. And here, my opponent went for this move, rook g1. And now, take a few seconds to see if you can find the best move. Here, I think I spent like 15 minutes, and I actually found the best move, which I think is the only move that gives black any winning chances, and also like just makes black's position like pretty clearly superior. So, at least the candidates here, let's see, what does the engine think? Okay, the candidates I was considering here were... okay, you can do one of a few things. Either you can make a waiting move like knight a7 or knight d7. You can play f4, or you can play f takes e4. So one of these moves is the correct move. And these were my candidates. Apparently the engine also says bishop d7 is a fine move. So I guess if you said that, then bishop d7 also works. But okay, take a few seconds to see if you can find the move. So the best move by far is f4. And the reason for which is at first unintuitive. So at first you think, okay, all our pawns are on dark squares, right? So we want to keep our light squared bishop. So why is it I play f4 and trade off my light squared bishop? That doesn't really make any sense. And it's for the reason that even though, yes, all our pawns are on dark squares and our light squared bishop would be improved, look at their dark squared bishop now. Their dark squared bishop is absolutely terrible. It has no future. The only way it has a future is if it goes d2, e1, and out to h4, which you don't have to allow to do. So here he took. Quite natural, he took. Played king e2. And okay, if you're also wondering why f takes e4 is not the move, because after takes, he just simply has this move knight here. And then it's very, 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 very difficult to defend here. For example, during the game, I thought the only move was knight f5, but apparently I can go knight d7. What? How do I defend? Oh, now knight f5. Oh, yeah. Yeah, so apparently after knight f5, here, knight d7, like, okay, I guess the position is about equal, but okay, white has something to play for. This bishop is not bad. They can go like bishop e3, and this knight is very, very, very nice. But this knight on f5 is nice, so I guess this is also a reasonable option. But f4 definitely gives black the most winning chances. Takes, king e2, knight d7, activating the pieces. Bishop d2, again, he has to try and develop. Rook g8, he went a5, and rook a5 is sort of a nothing move. I really think that my opponent should have probably just tried to avoid rook trades at all costs. And the reason why is because I have no way to infiltrate. Like rook g2, you can always go king f1 and just do nothing, because there's no way I make progress if there's a rook on g2. And at worst, I mean, okay, maybe you have to go rook g1 at some point, but you can really, really delay that. Like, you don't have to do it right away at all. But instead, he let me trade rooks, which I was very happy to see. I went rook g8, forcing the rook to b1, and now I went rook b8. Now, if he goes rook back to g1, I've made a slight improving move with rook a to b8, pretty much. Like, notice my rook was on a8, and now it's on b8, and that's it. His rook has gone to b1. So he went king d3. I went knight g6. Knight g6 sort of just prevents knight h4, which I thought that, okay, maybe he could have gone for here, and the engine says it's the best move. But okay, again, I think my opponent thought that it was an easy draw, but I was far from convinced. So yeah, king e7, I sort of just did nothing. I went king e7. I'm trying to remember, what does king e7 do exactly? Oh yeah, I'm threatening to go king d8, king c7, and go here. And now he goes back bishop here, so that I guess he can meet it like this. I can't remember. There was some reason that this was played, but now I go king f6. He goes back bishop e1, and now, okay, I've triangulated to make slight progress. My king has got to f6 from f7 for pretty much free. If we noticed, we had this position, now we have this position. So same position, except my king has moved one square up. So that king on f6 is just purely better than king on f7. So that is a success. So now I went knight f8. My idea was to go knight h7 in here. King e2, knight h7, knight d2. Okay, so he doesn't allow me to go knight g5 with the threat of this and the pawn. Notice that, okay, let's say he does nothing. Now I go knight g5, and now it's difficult because now if he goes here, I can go knight h4, preventing that. Now if he goes king e2, now I have f3 here. And okay, I didn't necessarily see a win here though. Okay, apparently this is just completely winning. Yeah, that makes perfect sense actually. Okay, so that was sort of my idea. But okay, he prevented that, which was strong. Now, okay, it's about equal. I don't really have any moves. King e7. And the engine actually really doesn't understand this. Like, engine constantly says minus 0.2. But, okay, it's very, very difficult for either side to do anything. So I went knight h7, king e7. Now I thought, okay, maybe if I get my king over here. And his rook can't come to g1 at all anymore. So he goes f3. King d7, I'm moving over. Bishop f2. Knight f6. Sort of dreaming about going knight h5, I guess. Rook g8, knight e7. And here again, I think another mistake was made, which is this rook g1 move. I don't think there was any need to trade rooks. You had my rook pretty much tied down to the b pawn, and now I have no weaknesses anymore because there's no way to target the b pawn. So you are the only one with weaknesses, and I can easily create a pass pawn with a move like b6. So knight d2, knight g6, knight b1. I think this was very, very accurate by my opponent. Now I have to go a6. Here, and now here I really should not have gone for this move b6. I think it was way too rushed. I can sort of just make another billion dilly-dallying moves, like just pretty much do nothing for another 20 moves, waste his time, and maybe make some threats, and then eventually go b6, because b6 is a committal pawn move. So one thing about this is right now I had a 22-minute advantage, so I should sort of just nurture my time advantage. That's another thing you have to do in these equal endgames, is I'm in no rush to make a committal move. That's something that my opponent has to constantly think, do I have a threat? Do I have a threat? Because there's no way I lose this position. So that was another mistake I think I made here. I don't objectively think b6 is a bad move. Like b6, according to engine, is equal to all these other moves. Like you could literally move anywhere except for h4 with your knight. That is the only bad move on the entire board. Is that actually true? Okay, h5 is pretty bad too. It gives up all winning chances, but because you no longer have like knight h4 or anything. But knight h4 is literally the only bad move on the board other than that. All these other moves are pretty much equal according to the engine. So b6 was played, takes. Knight e1 here. And now I go king c7. This sort of just does nothing because didn't I just go there? King d2. I went knight c8. Knight e7. My opponent probably should have just repeated because they have no chance of winning. Knight c8. Here now knight b6. Now knight f4. Now he's sort of allowing me to maneuver. So my knight wanted to be on f6. And so I sort of got my knight to f6. Now he goes here. And now I go knight h7. And now all of a sudden, your bishop on e1 is actually a huge mistake. Because now your knight cannot get to e1. So what should he have done? He should have gone king c2. Such that if I go for the same plan, like king b3, here, king c2, or now knight d3, after knight h7, meet it with knight d3. Oh, knight g5 is still winning here. Oh, yeah, because of knight h3 trapping the rook. I forgot about this idea. So what should he have done? King d1, knight h7, king e2. Ah, okay. So his king needs to be on this side, guarding the bishop and also guarding the pawn. So yeah, difficult. Like I can still pose a lot of problems. And then here eventually he blundered. He cracked under the pressure. Now he can't even go knight e1, which was his original idea because of knight h3. And okay, so I've actually finally managed to do it. You sort of just make a bunch of nothing moves, have one concrete idea, which is to trap the bishop and also pressure the pawn on f3, threaten it with your pawn on the outside, and you've sort of won the equal endgame. But now it comes to the conversion. So he took on c5. It's pretty much the only move. And yeah, he has to sack. He has to try something. Now here, what's the best move? If you said king b6, you would be sorely wrong. You should just go king c8 and then take here and push your pawn, take on h3, and your king is too far to be checked. Easily winning. So that's easily winning number 1. Okay, so obviously you're bad at chess like me, and you play king b6. So okay, such things happen. Okay, your opponent goes knight d3. Okay, they want to push the pawn. Okay, so probably you should just take. Yeah, that's the best move. c5. Now what do you do? Do you go king c7 or do you go king b7? And why would you do either of these moves? Okay, king b7 looks a little bit natural. Maybe you don't get hit by d6. You don't get hit by c6. A little bit farther away from the pawns. Maybe that the pawn gets too fast. Okay, you have 17 minutes. You spend like 4 minutes and play king c7, which, okay, apparently somehow is the best move. Who knows why? King b7 is just very, very practically winning here because he can't move his guy up because now this check wins this pawn. So what does he do? He goes here, and then I guess you just do the same thing with knight g5 or even knight d2 also probably works. Or knight g5 because now if he defends this, you can keep his knight there. But okay, you don't do that. Instead you go king c7. Now he goes d6. Now what should you do? King b7, king c6, king c8. Any of these moves, they all have their merits except for probably king b8. I'm just going to eliminate that because it doesn't really make any sense. So what do you do? Did you say king b7? It's not the move. King c6, that's one of the worst moves actually. You allow this, but is it the worst move? Now you go here and a5. And his knight can't do anything. Knight g5. If king here, sack this and the pawn just starts going. Okay, another win. This one maybe not so easy. So king c6 is a good move. What about king d8? King d8 is not a good move. What about king d7? King d7, king c4. Okay, it's looking scary, right? Isn't he going to go here? King e6. Wait, how does he approach? He can't approach at all. So this is easy win number 3 missed. So king d7 is also easily winning. So now we saw that king c6 is winning, king d7 is winning. King b7 is not winning actually because now he actually gets in. King b8 is also similarly not winning. What about king c8, the move I played in the game? What is the logic behind this? There's none. There's no calculation. I spent no time on this move. Like, I don't know what I spent time on this move, but not 1 second of that time was spent calculating. I thought I'd already won the game. Now he goes king c4 and he goes king c4 and now I realized, okay, wait, am I screwed? He's going to bring his king in. And what do I do? What do you do? The answer is, pause the video if you want to find it yourself. You go knight g5. If he goes here, you go f3, threatening to promote. Let's say he goes here. Now you go knight f4. Now and now only. And after takes, you make a queen and you win the game easily. So instead, after f3, he should go knight f2. And now you can push the pawn on the other side. He has no moves. Easy win number 4. This is number 4. This is the easy win number 4. There's nothing to calculate here. His king cannot come in the game. Okay, so that's another easy win missed. You instead, for some reason, who knows why, you went knight d2. And you decided to move the knight to the opposite side of the board. Now he went king d3. Now you went f3. Okay, you actually played a good move for once. f3 was the only move there to keep the advantage. c6. Now what do you do? Now at this point, I know we're on easy win number 5. There were 5 easy wins. Like, I just had to calculate one line. 2 moves, 2 or 3 moves, instantly over. Now is the point where I have to be super accurate. So I had to make 5 mistakes at this point to get to this point where I actually have to be accurate. That's how winning the position was. And that's how catastrophic this game was without spoiling the result. So here, the only winning move, pause the video, is knight b3. And at first, this one is actually a little bit difficult to understand. Like, what actually is the idea? Let's say he goes c7. Or sorry, let's say he goes king e6. This was sort of done in the game. Knight a5, attacking the pawn, say c7. Now there's no way to progress the pawn. If he goes here, I take here. The knight on c6 covers. This was really important to see. Now what other options do you have? Let's say he goes knight b4. I'm not even sure what this is threatening. Maybe like here, king c6 or something. Okay, now we go knight f4. If he takes. Okay, what? We go knight d2. Whoa. That's, again, a very, very difficult move to find. Knight d2 now. You just went knight b3. Now you sacrifice the pawn to e5. Now go knight d2. Okay. This is just a very, very difficult move. What other moves could we play? You could go knight f8, I guess, preventing him from coming in. But now you, again, sacrifice this. And again, okay, you try to push this pawn. Maybe he tries to run. Are you fast enough? Apparently, the only winning move here is knight e4. What? Knight e4 is the only winning move. You've got to be kidding me. And then f2 and a3. e6, knight takes e6. Knight c7. Wow. And the pawn cannot be stopped. Again, this is just... Okay, this is just brilliance at this point. I think that would be very, very difficult to find. But, okay, you panic and you play knight f4. And knight f4 is the sixth and final killer mistake that completely throws the game. So, yeah, at this point, takes, and clearly you didn't calculate something right after king e6 here. I realized that I thought this might be winning after here, but it's most definitely not. And now you do have to be a little bit careful to not lose the game. I went f3, and here, after queen d5, or no, sorry, my opponent went queen d6, offered a draw, and I accepted because it's just going to be perpetual. I think here my opponent could even have tried to continue with something like this. Oh no, queen b5 here is winning. I guess I wish my opponent continued with that. Yeah, he should just not go there. He should just give a perpetual like this. And if I ever go up queen b4, and this is just a perpetual. So that's how the game would have ended. But yeah, I think this was a good illustration of how to play this opening, at least. I mean, I think I played it quite nicely. I showed basically what you have to do in this opening. You have to try to just trade all the pieces. That's the idea. Trade all the pieces, go into a slightly better endgame. And there's some imbalance. And if your opponent, especially if your opponent is a more solid player, I mean, this is what they're going to want to do, right? I outrate my opponent by 200 points. At least my personal play style is very tactical, and I think my opponent knows that. I like to keep pieces on the board. I like to sacrifice. I like to attack. So they want to get queens off the board. They want to trade pieces, and then, okay, I go into a better endgame. You grind for a million moves. Eventually, as all GMs have done to me, you eventually make a mistake, which is this not finding this king back to c2, bringing this back. And then, okay, you get a winning position and you throw. That's how the cycle goes. But yeah, I hope you learned something about the opening. I hope you learned something about conversion. I hope you don't think I'm too salty at this. Okay, this type of stuff happens, and I even have thrown games like this. But okay, this is a very, very disheartening game, at least, to say the least. Okay, yeah, that's today's video, guys. I'll see you guys in the next one.